Hi, I'm Mark Donegan with the Marketing Execution Podcast. The best content in the world is worthless if nobody stops to read it. And yet, most founders treat their headline like wrapping paper, something you throw on at the end. In this episode, we challenge that mindset. Tim brings a framework that breaks headlines into 5 essential components and explains how curiosity gaps actually work in the brain. Because in a crowded market, your headline isn't just the introduction, it's the decision point. Let's break it down.
Tune in, listen up, it's marketing time. Bright ideas sparking, growing your mind. From strategies to big exec dreams, catch the buzz and join the execution. Marketing Convo.
Welcome to the Marketing Execution Podcast. This is the show for tech founders and leaders building B2B products and technologies. We show you how to go further, faster to get the business results you need.
From strategies to big exec dreams, catch the buzz and join the execution. Marketing Convo.
Mark, I've been thinking about something that honestly keeps me up at night. You know how we're all obsessed with creating content, right? Blog posts, social posts, landing pages. But here's the thing. I'm starting to realize that most of us are spending all our time on the body of our content, and we're phoning in the most important part.
You're talking about headlines and hooks. Yeah. Tim, this is one of those things where founders get it completely backwards. They'll spend 3 hours writing an article and then 30 seconds slapping a title on it.
Exactly. And I stumbled across this framework that it actually breaks down what makes a headline irresistible. Like not just good, but irresistible.
Okay, so let me guess. It's not just about being clever or catchy, right? Because that's what most people think. They think, oh, I need a pun or I need something shocking.
No, it's way more systematic than that. There's actually 5 pieces to it.
5 pieces. All right, walk me through this because I've seen, on the Marketing Execution Podcast, we talk about this stuff all the time, but I want to hear this specific framework.
So the first piece is a number, like how many? For example, 6 tips, 7 reasons, 11 mistakes. And I know that sounds basic, but
is not. Really, you know what? The number does something psychological. It tells the reader exactly what they're getting. There's no ambiguity. When I see 7 reasons, my brain goes, okay, I know the scope of this. I can commit to 7 things.
Right. And then you layer in the who, an audience, for project managers, for therapists, for founders.
And this is where startup founders mess up. They try to appeal to everyone. But when you say for first-time founders or for bootstrap SaaS companies, suddenly the right person's ears perk up. They're like, wait, that's me.
Okay, so we've got the number, we've got the audience. Then there's the what, which is basically the noun. Tips, reasons, mistakes, lessons, templates, case studies.
You know what's interesting about this? The what determines the perceived value. Templates and case studies feel more concrete than tips. Mistakes feel more urgent than lessons. There's a hierarchy here that most people don't think about.
I never thought about it that way. So you're saying the noun choice itself is doing heavy lifting?
Absolutely. I once heard of a company that tested 2 identical articles. One said 5 tips, and the other said 5 templates. The template version got 40% more clicks. Same content, different noun.
Wow. Okay, so then we've got the why, the reason or outcome, to get promoted, to not lose your job, to buy your first house.
The why has to be tangible, noun-oriented. You can't say to be happier or to feel more confident. Those are adjective outcomes. They're fuzzy. But to land your first $10,000 client, that's specific. That's a noun. That's something I can picture. So no intangible, fluffy stuff. Your audience is smart. They've seen a million headlines. They can smell vague promises from a mile away.
And then the 5th piece is what they call twist the knife, which sounds kind of brutal, but
it's brilliant though. You're adding 2 or 3 additional benefits. So instead of just 7 tips for founders to land clients, it becomes 7 tips for founders to attract your first 5 high-ticket clients and move into your dream office. You're stacking outcomes.
You're giving them more reasons to click.
You're making it almost impossible not to click because now they're thinking, wait, I could get clients and the office? Tell me more.
Okay, so that's headlines, but here's what really got me excited. There's also these hook frameworks, and they're designed for the opening of your content to pull people in.
Oh, hooks are everything. You can have the best headline in the world, but if your first few sentences are boring, gone. They're scrolling past.
The one framework is called How Things That Don't Go Together Do.
And what's happening there is cognitive dissonance. Your brain goes, wait, what? Those 3 things have nothing in common. And that tension, that's what creates curiosity. You have to find out what connects them.
And then you deliver on it with something specific, like here's step by step how you can create your own.
That last line is crucial. You're promising a tangible deliverable, an actionable guide, a framework, something they can actually use.
There's also another one called The Untold Story of Unconventional Success. Like, I did 1.1 million in sales in 2 days using a little known category secret.
This one works because it combines proof with mystery. You're showing results, which builds credibility, but then you're hinting at a secret method, and everyone wants to know the secret. It's like we're wired for it.
And then there's the I did the hard work so you don't have to hook, where someone says, I watched 100 hours of this person's videos and here's what I learned.
This is genius for founders who don't have their own case studies yet. You're borrowing credibility. You're saying, look, I invested the time, I synthesized the insights, and now I'm giving you the shortcut. People love shortcuts.
Absolutely. Now, there was also an I spent the money version, like I paid $200,000 for this consultation and here's what I learned.
And that works because money equals value in people's minds. If someone paid that much, the information must be worth something. You're essentially pre-validating the content.
So all of these hooks, they're really about creating that gap between what the reader knows and what they want to know.
Exactly. It's a curiosity gap. And the key is you have to close it with something specific and tangible, not vague promises, not here's how to succeed, but here's the 3-part framework for rapid growth that you can use on any platform.
Mark, that's fascinating. Let's pivot for a second and talk about how a founder with zero marketing budget can actually implement these frameworks starting tomorrow.
You know, Tim, that question cuts right to the heart of why this stuff matters so much. Because when you have zero budget, your words are your only asset. Every single headline, every hook, every opening line, that's your marketing department.
Right. You don't have money to throw at ads and hope something sticks.
Exactly. And this is where I see founders make a critical mistake. They think, oh, I'll just write something decent and then boost it with paid traffic later. But that's backwards thinking. So you're saying the headline framework is actually
More important when you're broke.
It's essential. Look, I know of a founder who was bootstrapping a productivity app. No funding, no marketing budget. She spent 2 weeks just testing headlines on Reddit and Twitter before she even launched. Different combinations of numbers, audiences, outcomes. And by the time she went live, she knew exactly what language made her target customer stop scrolling.
Wait, so she was using these frameworks as market research?
Yes, that's the hidden power here. When you test a headline that says 7 templates for solo founders to land their first 3 paying clients, and it gets way more engagement than 5 tips for startups to grow faster, you've just learned something huge about your audience.
They want templates, not tips. They want specific numbers, not vague growth.
You nailed it. And that insight cost you nothing but time. Meanwhile, a funded competitor might spend $50,000 on focus groups to learn the same thing.
Okay, but here's what I'm wondering. Why do these frameworks work so well? Like, what's actually happening in someone's brain when they see a headline with all 5 pieces?
Oh man, this is where it gets really interesting. So there's this concept called cognitive load. When someone's scrolling through their feed, their brain is making split-second decisions. Should I stop? Should I keep going? A headline with a clear number reduces uncertainty. The audience identifier creates instant relevance. The specific outcome tells them exactly what's in it for them. You're basically doing all the mental work for the reader.
So they don't have to think about whether this applies to them.
Right, you've already told them, and that's huge because attention is finite. If someone has to wonder, is this for me? They're already gone.
And the hooks work the same way.
The hooks are doing something slightly different, but equally powerful. They're creating what psychologists call an open loop. Your brain hates unfinished patterns. When you read Nike, Pokemon, and James Patterson have one thing in common, your mind goes, wait, what? I need to know.
It's like an itch you have to scratch.
And the beautiful thing is, once you understand this, you can't unsee it. Every viral tweet, every clickable YouTube thumbnail, every email subject line that makes you open it, they're all using some version of these patterns.
So for a founder who's just trying to get noticed in a crowded market, this is basically a cheat code.
I wouldn't call it a cheat code because that implies it's somehow unfair. It's more like you're finally speaking the language your audience's brain already understands. You're not tricking anyone, you're just communicating more effectively.
And you're doing it systematically instead of hoping you get lucky with some clever phrase.
Yes, that's the key insight. Luck is not a strategy, but a repeatable framework, that's something you can build a whole content operation around, even if it's just you in your apartment at 2 a.m.
Love that. Okay, Mark, so we've talked about why this matters strategically. Now I want to get really tactical. Walk me through exactly how a founder can take these frameworks and start using them this week.
Okay, step 1. Open a doc right now. I mean, literally right now if you're listening. Write down your audience in one phrase, not startups, not businesses. I'm talking solo SaaS founders under 50,000 in revenue. That specific.
So the who comes first.
Always, because everything else flows from that. Once you know exactly who you're talking to, the headline almost writes itself.
Wait, I want to push back a little. What if someone has multiple audiences, like a project management tool that works for agencies and internal team?
Great question. You pick one for each piece of content. Notion did this brilliantly in the early days. They didn't try to be everything to everyone. One week, they'd post templates for product managers. Next week, templates for content creators. Same tool, different angle.
Though you're not limiting your product, you're just limiting each headline.
Exactly. Okay, step 2. Once you have your who, you add a number and a tangible outcome. I mean, for example, land your first 3 enterprise clients, or save 12 hours a week on reporting. The brain latches onto concrete things.
Okay, so we've got the audience, the number, the outcome. What about the hook itself?
Step 3 is where the magic happens. You pick a hook style that matches your content. Let me give you 3 that work for founders. First one, the unlikely connection hook. You take 3 things that seem totally unrelated and reveal their common thread. Something like Slack, your dentist, and Taylor Swift all use the same retention trick.
That would definitely make me stop scrolling.
Right? Your brain goes, wait, what? And now you have to click. The second hook style is the I did the work so you don't have to formula. I analyzed 200 SaaS landing pages so you can steal the 5 patterns that convert.
That's the research hook. And the third one?
The untold success story. You share a specific result with a specific method. Something like, we hit 10,000 users in 60 days using a LinkedIn strategy nobody talks about. Here's the exact playbook.
So you're promising both the story and the steps.
That's the key. The story pulls them in emotionally. The steps give them a reason to keep reading. You share real numbers from your journey and then break down what you did. It felt generous and useful.
Love how practical this is. So someone listening right now could literally open ChatGPT, plug in their audience, and start generating headlines tonight.
100%. And here's my challenge to anyone listening. Write 10 headlines using the 5-piece framework. Number, audience, purpose, outcome, twist a knife. Then pick your best 3 and test them on Twitter or LinkedIn tomorrow morning.
No budget required, just time and attention.
The data you get back will tell you exactly what language resonates with your people.
Okay, Mark, we've covered a ton of ground today. Can you bring it all together and summarize the key points founders should walk away with?
Most founders spend hours on their content, but only seconds on the part that actually matters. Your headline and your hook are doing 90% of the work, and the 5-piece framework gives you a system. You need a number for clarity, an audience for relevance, a noun that signals value, a tangible outcome they can picture, and then you twist the knife with stacked benefits. Your words become your entire marketing department. Testing headlines on social platforms is free market research, and the psychology behind all of this is simple. You're reducing cognitive load and creating curiosity gaps that the brain cannot ignore.
Mark, after everything we covered today, what's the one thing you really hope people don't forget when they close this episode?
The best content in the world is worthless if nobody stops to read it. Your headline is not the wrapping paper, it is the gift. Treat it that way and everything changes. The Marketing Execution Podcast is produced by Growth Stage Marketing. We are on a mission to see your company reach wild success using marketing pods.
Too big except dreams. Catch the buzz and join the execution. Marketing Convo.
Thank you for listening and being a part of the marketing execution movement and community. To learn how growth stage marketing clients reach more buyers and drive business impact, go to growthstage.marketing. That's growthstage.marketing.